Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel if you are already my subscriber. If not, please subscribe and support my new journey. In this video, I would like to share with you some of my stories from the past. Just recently, my son contacted me and asked me to share with him some of the stories from his childhood because he wants to put together as much as possible to communicate with AI so the AI would better know him, his value, his personal traits, his personality overall, to give him better ideas, better advice. And it is important to me because my son is adult and is grown up and he doesn't listen to his mom any longer, right? So at least AI would help him to find better solutions. When I received this request from my son, I thought that this idea is important not only for AI, but also for us to keep our family memories. Because how many stories are already lost? My father died in 2001. He was a very good storyteller, but I don't remember many stories. It was a while ago. And my mom right now, she has dementia. She she cannot put together anything from her past without confusion. So all their stories are gone. It is my responsibility to share my stories from my son's childhood while I'm still here and my brain works. What about you? Do you write stories from your life to keep your family legacy? If you do, share in the comments how you do that. I decided to write them down and share with you as well to keep in both formats. So I will read and do some comments if you don't mind. Let's get started. It was 1984. In June, or maybe in July, I graduated from Voronezh State University in Russia with a degree in philology. Philology means Russian language and literature. At the same time, my first husband, my Russian first husband, graduated from the Polytechnic University. That was the beginning of our life together. By the way, I didn't mention that my husband, my first husband, unfortunately died 3 years ago. So again, he cannot share his stories. We lost them. It would be very interesting for me to hear what he remembered, but there is no way, unfortunately. Well, let's go further. I was pregnant and we had no jobs yet, no income. We were living with his parents, and for me, it was a huge challenge to live under the same roof with his mother. She was very suspicious, didn't trust anyone, including me, and although she loved her sons deeply, she hated their wives, including me as well. I would like to share one of the examples that explains why I did not meet the expectations of my mother-in-law to be a good wife to her son. Because with my education background, with my education in Russian literature and language, I was not able to work for a factory that produces, let's say, sausages. So I cannot bring sausages to home, hiding them under my sweater. You know, like stealing from the factory and bringing home something so the family can eat. My mentality and my husband's mentality was very far away from this way of thinking. So being pregnant, I decided to leave Russia and go to Kyrgyzstan to stay with my parents until the baby was born. The due date was October 21st. Kyrgyzstan and Voronezh are far away from each other. I took a train from Voronezh to Moscow. It is one-night train. And then another long train from Moscow to Bishkek, the capital of Kyrgyzstan. During that time, Bishkek was called Frunze. It was another name. The journey took 3 days and 3 nights. From Bishkek, I had to take an additional 8-hour ride on a very crowded bus to reach my hometown. When I arrived home in Kyrgyzstan, my mom suggested I see a gynecologist at the local clinic just to check on my condition. The doctor was very concerned and said I was at risk of losing the baby due to the all stress and exhaustion from the travel. Imagine traveling for 3 days and nights in a shaking, noisy train with no air conditioning in the summer heat with dirty bathroom, poor food. It was terrible. The stress was too much for a pregnant woman. The doctor wanted me to stay in the hospital to save the pregnancy, but being young and fully unaware of the possible risk, I decided not to stay. I went home. Fortunately, my baby survived and we got through the difficult situation. We were fine. I was young and pretty healthy, so I was able to handle that situation. Later that summer, I took a job as a camp counselor in a children's summer camp. During Soviet time, all summer camps for children were called pioneer camps. And because I already graduated from the university, I was the oldest counselor among other camp counselors. I was promoted to chief counselor. You can imagine a very pregnant woman in pioneer tie, directing children, organizing different activities, rituals and traditions of the pioneer camp, and kids were laughing at me. It must have looked very funny, I completely understand, but it was better for me to spend summertime at the lake, our beautiful Lake Issyk in Kyrgyzstan, rather than to stay home with my parents. In September, my husband came to Kyrgyzstan after getting his vacation time, so we could fly together back to Russia, to Voronezh, where I was planning to give birth to my baby. We had a beautiful time together at the lake. The camp was already closed because the summer was over. We stayed in a small house near a lighthouse. And the man who was in charge for the lighthouse let us stay there for free because he was a friend of my parents. It was our responsibility at night to turn on the lighthouse light. And one time we forgot. The man came in the morning, knocked the door and told us, guys, please don't do that. Don't forget to turn the light on because there are ships in the lake, in the sea, and they depend on this light. It was a very responsible job. At the beginning of October, we started our journey back to Voronezh. First, we stayed for a couple of nights in Bishkek with my close friend, my university roommate, and then we flew from Bishkek to Moscow and from Moscow to Voronezh. Being pregnant and so close to my due date, I felt huge pressure on my belly during the flight. It was something that you cannot imagine if you have never been pregnant. I never knew that it feels this way. The pressure, huge pressure on your belly. It is scary. It was scary. When we finally got back to Voronezh, I was extremely tired and very sleepy due to time change, flights, and all the airport transitions. That night, October 6th, my water broke. I was taken to a hospital designated for women who arrived without proper preparation. No tests, no referrals. It was like an emergency labor hospital. I had a terrible experience in terms of the pain and the contractions. I was so exhausted from the trip and hardly able to stay awake. At 7 a.m., the hospital changed shifts. The nurse who had been taking care of me stayed longer to help with my delivery. I was very lucky because incoming nurse named Tatiana was found to be very rude. She had heavy makeup and long bright red nails. She shouted at patients and threatened women harshly. I remember one woman gave birth to a girl, and she planned to name the girl Tatiana. But having this nurse Tatiana who helped her with her delivery, she decided not to do that because that Tatiana was very, very nasty person. I was very lucky because the nurse who stayed with me, her name was Nadezhda, was quiet, polite, and very kind person. She stayed just long enough for me to deliver. My son was born at 7:15 a.m., 15 minutes after her shift officially ended. So she could leave, but she stayed with me. I appreciate that so much. I remember seeing my son for the first time, a small and cute baby. But at that time, I didn't feel much. I didn't feel anything. I just was relieved. Oh, it is over. I wanted to sleep. That is how my son was born, 3 weeks before his due date. Looking back, I realized I was young, inexperienced, and uneducated in motherhood. I took risks, traveling by train and bus in this condition, deciding not to stay in the hospital in Kyrgyzstan, flying back to Russia so close to my delivery date. Anything could have happened. I could have given birth anywhere, on the plane, in a car, even on the street. But I didn't think about any of that. At that time, the idea of living under the same roof with my mother-in-law during the summertime felt like a bigger threat than losing my baby. I was very happy that everything turned out well. My son was born healthy and strong, and I recovered quickly. I began learning about motherhood from my experience and love. Thank you very much for watching my video and listening to my story. I hope that you like it. Please let me know in the comment. I do believe that every story, every moment in our lives is precious. In your life, in my life, in everyone's life. So to keep stories, to keep those memories is very important for us and maybe for future generations. Thank you again, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.